Welcome to another episode of the Crime Decoder. Another story, another truth to discover. It was a warm April evening in Westchester, Ohio. It's a kind of night where families gather for dinner, where life feels ordinary. But on this night, something unthinkable happened. For family members brutally gunned down, one man stood at the center of it all. 911 call was made. Operator.
911? What's your emergency?
My family's been shot. My wife, my in-laws, everyone's dead. There's blood everywhere.
What you're hearing is real. A 911 call made on April 28, 2019. By Gurpreet Singh, the man now accused of executing his entire family in cold blood. But was it genuine panic, or a carefully rehearsed performance? This call triggered a cascade of questions. Why didn't the neighbors hear gunshots? Why were there no signs of forced entry? And most haunting of all, why was Gurpreet the only survivor? Experts would later dissect this 911 call. Voice analysts noted subtle inconsistencies, moments where the panic sounded manufactured. He says his family is bleeding, not dead. A curious choice of words, perhaps avoiding the full truth. Police dispatchers noted that Gurpreet never attempted CPR, never screamed for help from neighbors. Instead, he stayed on the line, almost waiting for a script to play out, and yet in court he insisted. He walked into a bloodbath. He claimed he found his wife, her parents, and her aunt all dead. The 911 call lasted for over 4 minutes. In those 4 minutes, Gurpreet never asked who might have done it. He never screamed the name of a suspect. He never asked about safety. Instead, he kept saying one thing over and over. At the 2:43 mark, Gurpreet breaks into sobs. But investigators questioned why no effort to check pulses. Why no attempt to wake them up, even in desperation. When officers arrived minutes later, they found Gurpreet outside, shaking and covered in sweat. Something was off. No. Blood on his clothes, not a drop. He was too clean, one officer later testified. For someone who claimed to be near all 4 bodies, he didn't look touched by the chaos inside. Inside the home, a horror scene. 4 bodies, all shot execution style. No signs of struggle, a forced entry. All digital locks. And Gurpreet held the only master code. News of the murder spread like wildfire. A peaceful Sikh family slaughtered in their own home. Social media exploded. Rumors swirled. Was it a hate crime? A robbery gone wrong? Or something even darker? But one question kept surfacing again and again online, in living rooms, in hushed tones across Ohio. Who is Gurpreet Singh? Why is he still walking free? Within 24 hours, detectives found something that shattered Gurpreet's carefully constructed version of events. A single surveillance camera, one that saw more than anyone expected. That camera revealed Gurpreet's timeline didn't add up. His location data contradicted his story, and a deleted text message recovered from the cloud would become the beginning of the end. Before the blood. Before the chaos. Before the world knew the name Gurpreet Singh, for all the wrong reasons, there was something else. A life. A family. An illusion of perfection. The Singh family seemed like the American dream personified. Educated, respected, family-oriented. A picture of immigrant success. Westchester, Ohio. Suburban haven 20 miles from Cincinnati. Low crime, good schools, white picket fences. The kind of place people choose to raise a family. In 2006, Gurpreet Singh and his wife Poonam moved into a new 2-story home on Windtree Drive. It was more than a house. It was a symbol, a declaration that they had made it. One of the neighbor interviewed.
They were just so normal, kids playing outside. Poonam would wave when you walked the dog. Gurpreet, bit quiet, but respectful, kept to himself.
Poonam and Gurpreet had been married for over 17 years. They had 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. The children were the pride of the family. Honor students, well-behaved, polite. Even during temple services, the Singhs stood out. Living with them were Poonam's parents, Shalinder and Amarjit Kaur, and her aunt, Nirmaljit Kaur. 3 generations under one roof. A traditional Indian joint family system. But behind the closed doors of the Singh home, the cracks had already begun. To outsiders, Gurpreet was a success. Mechanical engineer by training, soft-spoken, reliable. But in truth, he was barely hanging on. By 2018, Gurpreet was swimming in debt. Mortgage payments had lapsed. Credit card balances were maxed out. The trucking company he helped manage. Bleeding money. But he could find escape outside the marriage at the time of the murders. Gurpreet was secretly involved with at least 2 other women. One in Indiana, one in Michigan. Poonam had no idea, at least. Not at first. His affair with one woman lasted nearly 3 years. He spoke of divorcing Poonam, starting over, taking out insurance policies. In one of the text messages from his girlfriend, he said, "You promise it'll be just us. No more lies." But in truth, Gurpreet couldn't afford divorce. Not financially and not emotionally. After the murders, detectives found something haunting: journals belonging to Poonam. Pages filled with stress, sorrow, and suspicion. Her parents had begun documenting arguments. Shalander had even consulted a lawyer worried about Gurpreet's threats over finances and property rights, according to the interview gave by their family attorney. They were preparing to confront him to protect Poonam and the children. But they never got the chance. Now in hindsight, it seems so clear. The perfect family, a facade, the devoted husband. Living a lie, in a household once filled with love, now remembered only by the echoes of gunfire. Gurpreet Singh didn't just kill his family. If the evidence holds true, he killed an illusion. One that blinded neighbors, friends, and even his own children until it was too late. He smiled for the photos, attended every school play, donated to the temple. To the world, Gurpreet Singh was the definition of a good man husband, father, son-in-law. But beneath that polished image, something darker was growing, something calculating, something cold. To understand the man at the center of one of Ohio's most brutal family murders, we need to look at who Gurpreet pretended to be. According to interview of one of his former co-worker, he was quiet, respectful. Always asked about your family, never raised his voice. If anything, he was too polite. But these surface-level impressions would prove dangerously misleading. Because the real Gurpreet, when no one was watching, was a man unraveling. The first real cracks in Gurpreet's image appeared in cyberspace. Investigators recovered over 17,000 text messages from his phone. Many were flirtatious, some explicit, and some deeply incriminating. He maintained multiple romantic relationships, often simultaneously, lying to each woman about his status. One woman, an American truck dispatcher from Indiana, later told police that Gurpreet had promised her marriage once he was free. But free didn't mean divorce. Behind closed doors, Gurpreet was under enormous financial pressure. His trucking company was failing. Creditors were calling. Insurance premiums were due. He was drowning and hiding it from everyone. But what shocked investigators was this day before the murders. Gurpreet increased the life insurance policies on Poonam and her family. Over $800,000 in potential payouts. He told Poonam's parents they were just securing the children's future. But behind their backs, he had listed himself as the sole beneficiary. So what drives a man to destroy the very people who trust him most? According to psychiatric evaluations and behavioral experts, it wasn't rage, it wasn't even impulse. It was calculation. By late 2018, Gurpreet saw no way out. Divorce would ruin him financially. Poonam's family might take the house. He'd lose the children. But murder, that solved all of it. This wasn't just premeditation. This was a blueprint. A methodical annihilation wrapped in a performance of grief. And yet no one saw it coming. Or maybe they did but looked away. According Poonam friend interview, she stopped smiling a year before it happened, said he was distant, as she felt invisible. I thought it was just marriage stuff. In her final weeks, Poonam confided in a cousin, said she feared Gurpreet was seeing someone else, that she felt watched, that something was off. Instincts were right. The version of Gurpreet Singh presented to the world was a mask. Behind it was a man who orchestrated an unspeakable act, murdered 4 people in cold blood, and dialed 911. As if he were the victim. But by now, investigators had begun to connect the dots. Financial motives, digital affairs, insurance payouts, rehearsed panic. It was all unraveling. The final moment when Gurpreet's mask slipped came during his second police interview. Detectives asked a simple question. Do you feel responsible? His reply stunned even the most seasoned investigators. He said he didn't pull the trigger, but he would soon face what he feared most. Evidence. Witnesses. Trial. According to the timeline reconstructed by investigators, the evening began as any other. The children were away at a birthday party. Poonam was cooking. Her parents and aunt were chatting in the family room. Gurpreet Singh claimed he was out on deliveries, but phone data says otherwise. His phone set to silent was disconnected from Wi-Fi, a move investigators called intentional digital camouflage. He wanted no trace, but digital forensics left footprints anyway. The order of the killings was brutal, methodical. Based on blood spatter analysis and ballistic trajectories, police believe the first shot was fired in the kitchen. She never saw it coming. Next, her father Shalander, seated in the living room recliner, shot twice chest and head. Forensics showed he turned his head at the last second. He saw his killer. Her mother Amarjit tried to run. She made it to the hallway, shot once in the back and again at close range. And finally, Poonam's aunt, Nirmaljit. She was in the prayer room. The gunman approached her from behind. One-shot execution style. There were no signs of forced entry. No broken windows. No shattered locks. The security system hadn't even been armed. And perhaps most damning, the only person who had the full alarm code and the keys was Gurpreet Singh. The crime scene suggested familiarity. Comfort. The killer didn't enter violently. He already lived there. After the murders, there was a lull. A window of silence, roughly 25 minutes where nothing happened. No 911 call. No attempt to flee. No panic. Then at 9:36 p.m., Gurpreet called 911. In that 25-minute gap, police believe Gurpreet cleaned up. Changed clothes, wiped the gun, tossed gloves into the outdoor trash bin, then staged his reaction. He refused to go near the bodies. When asked to show the scene, he pointed vaguely and said, "In there." His tone flat, measured, as if he knew what he'd see because he'd seen it already. There was one glaring problem. No murder weapon. All 4 victims were killed with a .40 caliber handgun. But the gun was never found, yet he had visited gun ranges with friends. He had mentioned liking Glocks in casual conversation, and security footage showed him visiting a Walmart days earlier purchasing cleaning supplies. Gloves and a black duffel bag. To this day, the weapon has never been recovered. But investigators believe he threw it into the Great Miami River within hours of the crime. Why would a man kill his entire family in one night? Police discovered 3 reasons stacked like dominoes. 1. Financial collapse. He was bankrupt, tens of thousands in debt. Creditors closing in, 4 family members insured. 2. Secret affairs. He was living a double life. 2 mistresses, both pressuring him to leave his wife. 3. Inheritance control. Poonam's father had placed the family home in his daughter's name. If she died, it would default to Gurpreet. It was the perfect crime until it wasn't. As detectives pieced the timeline together, one piece of evidence unraveled his entire narrative. That shadow matched Gurpreet's height, gait, outfit. He denied leaving the house, but the camera said otherwise. A single frame, a shadow, a timeline that didn't match. And with that, the case was cracked wide open. 4 family members slaughtered. No forced entry, no witnesses. And 1 man left standing in the hours after the murders. Gurpreet Singh presented himself as a devastated husband and grieving son-in-law. But for investigators, something didn't add up. Within hours, Gurpreet was taken in for routine questioning, not as a suspect, but as the only known witness. But detectives were trained to spot red flags. One stood out immediately: his total emotional control. And then the inconsistencies began. In today's world, our devices are our shadows, and Gurpreet's digital footprint would tell a very different story from his words. At 8:40 p.m., roughly 15 minutes before the 911 call, his phone disconnected from Wi-Fi. At 8:47 p.m., surveillance captured a figure leaving the back of the house. And at 9:36 p.m., the call to 911 was made. But the most damning clue? A neighbor's Ring camera capturing Gurpreet's SUV parked outside the home the entire time he claimed to be away. Detectives invited Gurpreet back for a second interview. This time they were prepared. First rule of guilt: the story shifts. Now, instead of a clear timeline, Gurpreet was backpedaling. Phone records showed a series of deleted messages to one of his mistresses, hours before the murders. Police recovered them using cloud backups. Voiceover messages like, "Everything will change soon. You'll see." Without a murder weapon, police had to rely on forensic breadcrumbs. And what they found quietly dismantled Gurpreet's story, enough to suggest he had wiped something off. not enough to support his version of simply finding the bodies untouched. It was circumstantial, but stacked together. The evidence formed a chilling picture: a man covering his tracks, a man lying to investigators, a man who didn't expect surveillance to betray him. News of the inconsistencies began to leak. The community, once heartbroken for Gurpreet, started asking questions. But the most devastating blow was yet to come, when investigators discovered exactly what Gurpreet stood to gain if every family member died: the insurance, the house, the sole surviving parent status. It all led to one horrifying conclusion: Gurpreet Singh didn't just want freedom, he wanted everything. And his children. That night they were at a birthday party. By sheer luck, they were spared. The early pieces of the puzzle were circumstantial, conflicting timelines, an odd emotional detachment, and traces of gunpowder. But the case would not crack open until detectives began pulling together what Gurpreet never expected them to find: the digital fingerprints of murder. These weren't just messages to a mistress. They were pre-crime confessions. And they raised one glaring question: how far had he planned this? Armed with growing suspicion, detectives filed for a full digital and physical search warrant. It was approved on May 1, 2019, just 3 days after the murders. Even more damning hidden in the garage freezer. Behind bags of frozen naan, investigators found a pair of nitrile gloves. Inside the gloves, faint traces of the victim's blood and a single hair belonging to Gurpreet. But the breakthrough wasn't physical. It was digital. On an old external hard drive tucked in a drawer under years of tax papers, detectives found what they called the digital diary of a killer. He'd researched silencer attachments, body decomposition rates, how long it takes police to arrive after a 911 call. It wasn't a snap decision, it was a blueprint. On May 2, 2019, Gurpreet Singh was brought in for a third interview. But this time, detectives weren't asking, they were confronting. But Gurpreet didn't crack. Not a single tear. No denial. Just silence. The one moment he reacted: when they mentioned the children, detectives said. "What would your children say, knowing you were capable of this?" Gurpreet replied. "They weren't supposed to be there." It was the closest thing to a confession. On July 31, 2019, after 3 months of building their case, Westchester police formally charged Gurpreet Singh with 4 counts of aggravated murder. He had fled Ohio, was staying with a distant relative, but there was no more running, no more pretending. In the end, it wasn't rage. It wasn't sudden. It was a plan. Selfish, methodical plan to erase an entire family and start over. For lives lost, a mountain of evidence. A community in mourning. But justice is never a straight road. What unfolded inside the courtroom was not just a trial. It was a battle for the soul of truth. On July 31, 2019, Gurpreet Singh was formally indicted on 4 counts of aggravated murder, each carrying a potential death sentence. Charges stemmed from the brutal execution-style killings of his wife, Poonam, her father, Shalander, her mother, Amarjit, her aunt, Nirmalgit. But Gurpreet pleaded not guilty. So began one of the most intense legal showdowns Butler County had ever seen. Lead prosecutor Michael J. Moser opened with a chilling assertion. This man didn't just kill his family. He calculated every second of it. The digital trail alone tells the story. He deleted messages, cleared his browser history, bought gloves and a duffel bag, then he staged a call to 911. As if the blood on his hands wasn't real. He told detectives he got home and found them. The Ring camera caught someone leaving the house before that 911 call. That someone matched Gurpreet Singh in height, build, and clothing. The prosecution presented 127 pieces of evidence, including gunpowder residue on his watch, trace DNA and gloves found in his garage, and the most damning, a recovered message from weeks before the killings that read, "I wish they'd disappear." But Gurpreet Singh's defense attorneys were ready to fight their argument. Gurpreet was being framed by circumstantial evidence and a biased investigation. According to defense attorney, no weapon, no eyewitness, no confession. The state has built a house of cards. The defense introduced alternate theories suggesting a robbery gone wrong, or even a family vendetta tied to past business disputes. The defense attorney said, "He called 911. He cooperated. He had no criminal record. You're telling me he became a mass murderer overnight?" In a twist that shocked many, The defense introduced a clinical psychologist who claimed Gurpreet may have been suffering from dissociative emotional suppression, a condition where extreme trauma results in emotional numbness. But the prosecution hit back, bringing in their own expert who painted a chilling profile, according to the prosecution psychologist. This isn't trauma. This is manipulation. Gurpreet displays traits consistent with covert narcissism and high-functioning sociopathy. His calmness was control, not shock. But what moved the courtroom most were the people left behind. Friends, extended family, parents of the children who had to grow up without their mother. The courtroom was often silent, not from boredom, but because the weight of grief was too loud. After 5 weeks of testimony, 48 witnesses, and over 200 exhibits, the case went to the jury. They deliberated for 4 days, and outside a community held its breath. And then the decision came. 4 counts of aggravated murder. The jury had listened to 5 weeks of brutal testimony. 48 witnesses. Over 200 exhibits. A double life laid bare. A family annihilated. A man now facing the death penalty. On the 4th day of deliberations, the jury requested transcripts. Specific ones. Gurpreet's second interview, psychologist's cross-examination, and the Ring doorbell footage testimony. Outside, families waited, some sobbing quietly, others staring into the floor as if willing the clock to move faster. At exactly 2:18 p.m. on day 4, the buzzer rang. The jury had reached a decision. The decision was, we, the jury, find the defendant, Gurpreet Singh, guilty of aggravated murder in the death of Poonam Singh, guilty of aggravated murder in the death of Shailendra Singh, guilty of aggravated murder in the death of Amarjit Kaur, guilty of aggravated murder in the death of Nirmaljit Kaur. A collective exhale swept the room. Gurpreet blinked once, then nothing. No remorse, no emotion, not a single tear, just that same blank face. The families burst into quiet sobs. Some prayed aloud. Others collapsed into chairs. The man they once called son, brother, friend, was now officially labeled a mass murderer. With the verdict in, the trial shifted to the penalty phase. Should Gurpreet Singh be sentenced to death? Or should he spend the rest of his life behind bars? In a move that surprised many, the jury opted not to pursue the death penalty sentence. For consecutive life terms, without the possibility of parole, for some, it was justice. For others, a close call. From inside the Warren Correctional Institution, Gurpreet Singh now sits in silence. No public statements, no interviews granted, just a 10 by 10 cell and the legacy of what he destroyed. He has appealed the verdict, claiming procedural flaws, ineffective counsel, and a media-tainted jury. But so far, every appeal has been denied. What remains now is memory. The verdict may have ended the trial, but for those left behind, the story was far from over. A family, once full of laughter and life, wiped out in one night. A community left stunned. A justice system asking, could this have been prevented? The quiet suburb of Westchester, Ohio, the home once known for its warmth and celebration, is now a scar. The community of Indian Americans across Ohio was deeply shaken. Gurpreet wasn't a stranger. He was one of them, a father, a businessman, a friend. And that betrayal left wounds that won't heal overnight. The most innocent victims may have been the ones not in the house that night, Gurpreet's 2 young children. Today they live with extended relatives out of state, their identities protected, their futures uncertain. They've asked the questions children aren't meant to ask. Did Daddy do it? Why did he do it? And no one has the words to answer. Critics say the system failed the Singh family long before the murders. Despite signs of emotional abuse, estrangement, and financial manipulation, no red flags were ever raised. Gurpreet controlled the finances. He controlled the cars. He had full power over when Poonam and her parents could go out. But nothing was reported. If anyone had intervened just once, for lives might still be here today. To the outside world, Gurpreet Singh was successful. He wore tailored suits, drove a BMW, was deeply respected in the Sikh community, but underneath something darker festered. Poonam wanted independence. She wanted to work, to travel. Her family supported her. For a man like Gurpreet, that meant control slipping away. He didn't just kill his family. He killed the idea that a man like him could ever be publicly questioned. In the aftermath, communities across the U.S. began holding conversations that were once taboo about domestic violence, about control, about mental health and immigrant families. Outreach groups formed. Hotlines received a surge in calls. Quietly, survivors started speaking up. The Singh family may be gone, but their story continues. In every woman who finds the courage to leave, in every child who is protected, in every whisper that finally becomes a voice, what Gurpreet Singh tried to erase became immortal, a legacy of love lost, and a community forever changed. May they never be forgotten. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to uncover new truths and new crime mysteries.